At the beginning of January, I made a short about the 5 RPGs I wanted to beat for my backlog this year. I'm stoked to say I finished one of them, and it was SaGa Frontier. Now I was going to play the PS1 version, but then remembered that this game had got a remaster, so I got it on Steam. My experience with the SaGa games is very little. The only games I've played from this series are the Final Fantasy Legend games on the Game Boy. I always liked Final Fantasy Legend 2 the most, and remember it pretty fondly. Even as a kid I enjoyed the oddness of it, though to this day I still hate the fact that the weapons and magic had a set limit of uses on them. So going into Frontier, I knew there were different races, there's robots and monsters, and I had a general idea of how they operate and their strengths and weaknesses. Outside of that, everything was new to me. So let's take a look at SaGa Frontier Remastered and see what it's all about. First, I want to talk about the combat mechanics, leveling, and equipment of the game, as each race has different ways of being used. Characters can equip various armors, and their various effects are same as any other RPG, so it's normal there. But the non-monster characters can also equip more than one weapon. For example, a character can be equipped with a gun and a sword. Also, when it comes to equipment, you want to have a good idea of what kind of build you want, as the weapon slots also share the same space as items you can use in combat, like potions. So you don't want to stack on all weapons just in case you need to heal an ally. Weapons are pretty standard, except for the heavy arms, which have ammo, meaning you can only use attacks from that heavy arm equal to the amount of ammo it has. Thankfully, it's not like Final Fantasy Legend 2, where the weapons disappear after max use. The only thing I found annoying was that some characters that you recruit have certain equipment that you can't swap out, so they're just stuck with them. Other than that, I think the equipment system is fine. Okay, equipment is set, so it's time to battle. Each character selects their action before a combat round begins. Once all selections are done, actions are carried out by both the party and the enemies based on speed. If you don't eliminate the enemy, a new round starts, so on and so forth. It's pretty straightforward, but there is a little fun twist. Your characters can perform combo attacks if they are using skills. These combos can range from just 2 party members, all the way up to the entire party doing a combo skill. It is just awesome. Now, to pull off these combos, it gets complex if you decide to go online and research it. I don't even want to try and explain the formula for it, but it involves knowing how your turn order will go and having each character do a specific skill one right after the other. The easiest way I did it was to just pay attention to the turn order. If those skills form combos, just remember it and plan my moves accordingly. If this is too difficult, the game does keep track of the combos you use. And as I continue through this video, you'll discover there are a lot of formulas behind the mechanics in this game, but I'll be blunt, I didn't need to know them in order to beat everything, so don't even worry about them. Leveling up in SaGa Frontier is different as well. Instead of gaining enough experience to gain a level, you increase your stats based on another formula that takes the character's race into consideration. Once again, something that seems really complex, but I'll say this. If you want to build stats, just keep fighting enemies just like in any other RPG. There is another mechanic, and apparently these are throughout the SaGa games. It's called Battle Rank, where the more you fight, the more difficult enemies will start to spawn. Just think of it as the monsters leveling up with you. I like this because it keeps everything balanced and preventing you from just curb stomping everything in your path. Though, as you get more experience with the game, it does get way easier to just wipe out mobs. As you could tell, there is so much under the surface of this game, but through my experience, none of it was necessary to know. Now, I don't know if this is different in the PS1 version, like if maybe something in the remaster's formulas got buffed to make it easier or anything like that. If someone does know, please inform me. But I really enjoyed the combat in the game. I found it had a good challenge level for boss fights. I loved looking at all the animations. My favorite part was unlocking the DSC skill and watching the enemies get tossed around Street Fighter Zangief style. Sabin may have suplexed the train, but he didn't do a flying 360 pile driver. And the remaster has the ability to increase the game speed, so once you know how to decimate everything, speeding up combat really helped the game move along. Is it the best turn-based combat style? No, but it's different, so it kept me engaged. Now I want to talk about the story of the game, or I should say the stories of the game. Unlike most RPGs, SaGa Frontier doesn't have one full story. Instead, it has multiple stories. The original game had 7 stories to select from, but the remaster offers 8. Now, y'all know that I tend to gravitate towards games that break the norm of the genre, so seeing a setup like this got me pretty excited, which is a big reason why I love games like Live Alive and Octopath Traveler. I'm going to quickly explain each story and share some thoughts, one character at a time, but don't worry, I won't spoil anything. I started the game with T-260G, a robot that has been damaged and lost its memory. It's found in the town of Junk by a kid T-260 calls Captain Time. You meet a weapon-wielding boozer named Gen, and you go on a journey to find T-260's reason for existence. To be honest, this is one of the game's more linear stories, and I found it was a good one to start with because of that. The game offers a story tracker, so you don't really get lost, but T-260's objectives were very straightforward and didn't really have you exploring the entire world. I discovered that robots' equipment in the game is much different than others, as you have the entire equipment screen free to equip anything. And robots don't level like, say, a human does, they're all equipment based. After clearing T-260's story, I found a delightful new feature in the remaster, New Game Plus, which is, we all know, allows you to carry over things like stats, items, and equipment from your previously cleared file. The game allows you to get really specific with it, allowing you to select what you exactly want to carry over. And yes, you keep this New Game Plus rolling through all the stories, which is awesome, and I totally use this feature, because without it, it probably would have taken me twice the amount of time to clear all the stories. The next character I chose was Acellus, a half-human, half-mystic that was saved from death by the King of the Mystics, Orluge. Through this story, Acellus tries to adapt her new powers while trying to escape the clutches of Orluge and reclaim a life of her own. Her story and how she traverses through the world is much different than T-260's. Whereas the robots was linear, Acellus' story requires you to just explore until you're attacked by bosses, so you just freely go wherever you want until you're attacked. Luckily for me, this is the perfect story to play second, because I got to see almost every location the game had to offer. I also discovered that the town of Scrap is where you can recruit Loot, who I previously showed having the DSC skill earlier, and was a huge help with big fights. And yeah, I made sure I got Loot in every single playthrough and abused DSC the whole time. Acellus' story is kind of bittersweet and definitely scratches that vampire gothic itch. It was more intense than T-260's story, but not as enjoyable for me. Next up is Emilia, a former supermodel that is framed for the murder of her fiancé by a criminal named Joker. She's broken out of prison by a gang of vigilantes that are basically guns for hire, it seems. You then go on assignments given by Rufus and are accompanied by Liza and Annie. Emilia must complete her missions in an attempt to find and stop Joker. This was the most entertaining story in my opinion, and it really reminded me of something. 3 women given super spy assignments by a male handler. Oh my god. It's fucking Charlie's Angels. Like, no joke, it's Charlie's fucking Angels. A cool feature in Emilia's story is she actually gets different skins to wear. My favorite is Pink Tiger, her lucha libre persona. This story was fun and my most favorite. I moved on to the next character, Blue, a magic user that has to build his strength to defeat his twin, Rouge, to become the ultimate mage. Okay, at this point of the game is where I noticed one of the game's biggest weaknesses, the dialogue and writing. I don't know if something was lost in translation or the budget for writing was very small, but SaGa Frontier has a very old school way of providing their story through text. I mean, like almost NES levels of storytelling. There is no grand exposition of why a character needs to do something. For example, Blue has to find a set of 4 cards. It's just, find 4 cards, beat Rouge, that's it. Then, how he tries to get the info on the cards is, tell me where to find the Grail card. No conversation warm-up, no, hi, how are you? No, excuse me, I have a question, just tell me. The dialogue in the entire game is like this. Characters don't speak like people. They speak in the most basic terms. So much context is missing through everything you do that it makes it really hard to care about important events that are happening. And when you think you may get something more, the game just quick cuts on like everything is normal and nothing happened. This is probably my harshest criticism of the game. It's just not that interesting to interact with almost any character, which makes it hard to get attached to anybody from a story and character development standpoint. I really didn't care about any character outside their skill set in combat. Blue's story is very straightforward, but has really weird parts in it. Like the world selection screen when you first leave the Magic Kingdom, which is the town he starts in. Why does it look like this? It doesn't look like that for anyone else in the game. And then the end of his story even has credits? I don't know what's going on here. After Blue, I selected Riki, a monster has to find rings throughout the world to save his homeland. So this was my least favorite story. I hate having to use monsters in the party. They have a cool mechanic of eating enemies after battle to gain new skills and change form, but I can never figure out exactly how it worked optimally. All he did was absorb a bunch of monsters to get skills, then kept the form of the monster with the highest HP I could find. And the monsters can only equip 4 accessories, and that's it. Luckily, New Game Plus just let me breeze through Riki's story, but it did have a good twist for the final boss fight. I went on to Fuse's story, who is a detective working for IRPO as he's trying to solve the case of Acellus. Oh, I guess I should mention that some other main characters will spill over into each other's stories, but their spillover doesn't really coincide with each other. It's kind of a jumbled mess. Now, picking Fuse's story at this point was actually a mistake. He's meant to be played last, as there's an option to fight against all the other final bosses to get a different ending. I didn't know this, so I zoomed through Fuse's story extremely quickly. Fuse is the closest I got to a character I thought was pretty cool outside of Amelia, but I think it's only because I liked his detective gimmick. Okay, I finally made my way to Lute's story, who has just been a straight up muscle for me throughout the whole game. His story is basically his mom is sick of him being a lazy fuck, so she kicks him out and he decides to travel, but gets swooped up into a conspiracy involving his father. Of course, this is all laid out very blandly, which is in accordance with the game's storytelling. Lute's story was fast and uninteresting, but hey, more DSC, baby, yeah! We reached the final character in my playthrough, Red, a young engineer whose family was assassinated by an organization called Black X, who is then given superpowers like he's fucking Kamen Rider or something. Red travels the world trying to get vengeance on those that killed his family. Red's playthrough is a good one and has some of my favorite in-game scenes, like the one at the beginning where he's driving with his dad. And all the superhero stuff is fun, and I really like how he explains why Red all of a sudden disappears during fights. It's just really funny. I thought this story actually had the potential to be the best, but due to the usual quick cuts and bad storytelling, it loses so much that even the power of Alkaiser can't help. I would say at the end of my time with SaGa Frontier that I enjoyed it and liked the game, but mainly because I really had fun with the combat system and because the New Game Plus feature helped me get through it. I think the game looks okay visually. I'm not the biggest fan of kind of a claymation looking graphic style, but the artwork for the game is just absolutely fantastic. I love going through and looking at all these amazing illustrations. In fact, I would definitely say that the art is better than the game. I definitely wouldn't say I'm a SaGa fan yet, but I'm going to keep playing them, and I definitely want to play SaGa Frontier 2 sometime in the future. I just really hope that other SaGa games have way better storytelling than this game did, because I feel like if it had it, SaGa Frontier, at least this first one, would have been fantastic. Have you played SaGa Frontier Remastered? What are your thoughts on the game? Feel free to share them. Thank you for watching.